Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of Northeast Colorado Talks. Today in the studio, this is the first time we're going to have him, but this will be a monthly deal as we talk about different veterinarian topics and issues and stuff. Dr. Paul Shard joins us from Brush, and also his associate veterinarian, Dr. Jolyn Sokagawa. Did I get it?
Yep.
Not really, she says. Welcome, both of you. I'm glad to have you both in here today.
Thanks for having us, Laurie.
All right, so I'm glad that you're coming in to do this and kind of picking up with a program that we'd had once upon a time, because we do have so many livestock listeners out there who have lots of questions. So being proactive and being able to answer some of those questions and just talk about the different things that are going on at the time of the year, I think is important, and then as well as issues. So Dr. Jolyn, you're going to start us off here today, is that right?
I think
Dr. Paul's going to start us off. Okay.
Yeah, we decided it was a pretty timely topic to talk about some calving issues and some things around calf care. I think everyone that owns cattle knows that the live, healthy calves are what pays the bills, and so our goals during calving season are to get those calves on the ground alive and keep the cows in good shape so they'll breed back and have another calf the next year. All that starts, pre-calving, 60 to 90 days before we start having babies. We need to start paying attention to some nutrition stuff and make sure the cows are in adequate body condition. And I think it's important, and we've had great success with actually monitoring the body condition with an official body condition score scale that's pretty well accepted by the industry and pretty well established. It's a scale from 1 to 9, 1 being a weak cow that's near death and 9 being the fattest cow you can imagine. Ideally, our cows need to be between a 5 and a 6 at calving time. If they're too thin or thinner than that, we tend to have weak calves, poorer colostrum, and they don't breed back as well. If we're over fat, we have calving problems because there's fat deposited in the pelvic canal, and those cows don't seem to be as vigorous when they're pushing during labor. We have reduced milk production, and those cows won't breed back well either. We're sitting in a pretty good weather area right now, temperature-wise, but it wasn't long ago we had a pretty nasty cold spell. And the thing that we forget when it's nice like this is that we need to pay attention to the calories we're getting in these cows when it is cold or wet. Their nutrition requirements increase greatly during those periods, and then also when they're lactating after they have a calf. So we need to pay attention to make sure we keep a properly balanced ration, and our trace mineral nutrition is where it needs to be to keep that energy metabolism and those immune systems healthy. 3 things that we need to pay attention to on the baby calves once they're born and they need these to survive is, first of all, they need to be breathing well and getting oxygen into their body to burn and make heat. They also need adequate colostrum, and both quantity and quality of colostrum is important, and they need to be warm. So first of all, the biggest problems we have with the breathing generally are calving difficulties, or a cow doesn't get up soon enough when she has a baby and might have the sack over the head. Anytime we have those situations and we stress that oxygen carrying capacity, we compromise that calf's health potentially for his whole life. And the main reason why, as a newborn, that we need that oxygen is there's a substance that they're born with called brown fat. And this brown fat is an energy reserve that these calves use to burn for the first 2-3 weeks of life. And when they burn that, oxygen is used just like in a fire to make sure that brown fat is burnt properly and creates the body heat they need to stay healthy. If our cows are too thin when in that pre-calving period, that brown fat is actually lacking in the baby calves, and we have a hard time with calf vigor, and they seem to be hyperthermic real easy. The next thing, colostrum is critical. We need to make sure we get that in them as soon as possible. Most of the time with a normal birthing process and a decent mother, they take care of that on their own, but if we have to assist with calving, we need to make sure that we get that into them at least within the first 6 hours, and sooner the better. It's pretty well established that calves that don't get adequate colostrum are at greater risk for sickness through their whole life, all the way through the weaning and feed yard period. and 3 to 5 times more likely to be sick the rest of their life, and less productive all around. If we feel like we don't get enough colostrum, or the cow for whatever reason isn't able to provide an adequate amount, there's commercial colostrum replacers and supplements available. There's a huge difference between the replacers and the supplements. The replacer is designed to replace 100% of the cow's colostrum, and a supplement would be only used if the cow has provided some colostrum, but we think that they're lacking, maybe in a heifer that's not milking well. The supplements are not designed to completely replace all the colostrum.
Dr. Paul, let me just ask a real quick question on a supplement. So if you are not sure, can you go ahead and give it regardless? I mean, will it hurt the baby to have more than it needs, I guess?
Not at all. No, I mean, obviously we don't want to overfill their bellies, but it won't hurt to give them more than their mother's provided, as long as you're using proper hygiene with your equipment and actually giving the colostrum with proper technique, so we don't cause problems that way. So the next thing we need to pay attention to is to make sure these babies stay warm, and that's more difficult obviously when we have weather and cold weather and wet weather. It makes it very challenging. If we're there to help them be born, we need to make sure we dry them off quickly, and one thing that helps warm them up too is to massage them with towels or something like that, to massage them vigorously and get them stimulated. If you watch a cow in nature, they lick on the babies and can kind of get pretty rough with them.
And that helps with that stimulation.
Yeah, stimulates them to get up. Always have a way to warm up a calf, whether it's on the floorboard or your pickup or a calf warmer. We need to be able to make sure that we can warm them up if it's super cold out. We've had pretty good success with the calf blankets that are commercially available. Those help a bunch. Recently we got in some, it's kind of funny deal, but we got in some earmuffs for calves that they're made to go on a baby calf's ears. They keep them from freezing. As everyone that sells cattle in the fall knows, the cattle buyer's dock is pretty hard for frozen-eared calves. And one I think important thing that most people don't have around is just a cheap digital thermometer, so we can monitor those baby calves' body temperature. If they get below 101 degrees, we need to do something and intervene and make sure that calf gets warmed up quickly. And I think that'll lead in pretty well to the next part. Jolene's going to talk about when you need to call the vet and some of the signs of labor.
Well, hopefully we have the kind of weather we're having now, huh?
Yeah, nice.
It'll just stay, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Today we are visiting with Dr. Paul Shard as well as Associate Veterinarian Dr. Jolene Sagagawa.
Yes.
I get this time. All
yes.
right. With Cattlemen's Resource Incorporated, but we're having information just on general veterinarian issues, reminders, tips, maybe a few things folks didn't know about. So, Dr. Jolene, please continue.
Okay, so I'm just talking about, now that you've kind of heard the background before calving, this is the part where cows actually go into labor. So there are 3 stages of labor, and they think this is really important. The first one is stage 1, and this can last from 2 to 12 hours, and this is when that cow or heifer is restless. She goes and isolates herself. She's up and down. And once they start, you kind of want them to keep progressing. If they don't progress and there's nothing going on within 8 hours, you need to go and check her. And then we go to stage 2. Stage 2 is when you see that water sac, and then it ends when the calf is delivered. So this can take anywhere from 3 to 6 hours, and in heifers, and then cows are usually a little bit shorter, from 2 to 4 hours. And starting labor, you see that water bag, and then if nothing happens in 30 to 45 minutes, you kind of have this time frame. 30 minutes, you kind of want to see progression within every 30 minutes. So you see the water bag. 30 minutes later, you should see the feet inside the water bag. Another 30 minutes, you should see the nose inside the water bag. And then 30 minutes after that, you should have a calf. And if you don't see, this is just a generalization. It might take a little bit longer, but that is a good rule of thumb, is 30 minutes.
Okay.
And then in stage 3 is after the calf is done, you want to see those fetal membranes or the afterbirth, and make sure you see that. If you don't see all of that within 12 hours, you might have a problem too.
Dr. Jolene, can I just jump in with a question? So is it good for you as a handler to go in and help move that sac, move the afterbirth, or not touch it?
I don't think
I've heard both.
You don't want to touch it if it should progress naturally in 30 minutes. That's why you want that general rule. If you don't see anything within 30 minutes, then you should be thinking, oh, there might be something wrong.
Okay.
And then go ahead and go ahead and see if there is something wrong. And that's like a general rule of thumb. Like I said, that 30-minute, there might be a little less or might be a little bit more, but you want to make sure you keep monitoring them.
Does it take longer or less time depending on cold or warm conditions at all, or does that even matter when they're calving?
I would say it shouldn't matter as long as your cows are in good shape.
As long as they're in good shape.
If you have weak cows because it's too cold and their nutrition is not where it needs to be, it will take longer, and that causes severe problems.
Okay.
And then, so I guess talking about severe problems, there are signs that you can kind of monitor. So if you see a really swollen tongue or nose, that means that they might be stuck and they're getting deprived of oxygen. That blue tongue is pretty.
The calf.
The calf. Yep. And then if you see a head but you don't see any feet, then there might be malposition. So you need to go ahead and adjust that and make sure they can come out. So they need to come out with their head and 2 feet
in front of them.
Yep. And if you only see 1 foot, you need to maybe go in and pull up that other foot. And if you see the bottom of 2 feet, they might be coming backwards. So you want to make sure if they're coming backwards, you need to keep a closer eye on them, I would say.
Because they can still come out backwards. You don't need to turn them around.
They can, but once they start coming, they need to come out quickly because the cord breaks real early on a backwards calf. So once they start coming, you need to make sure it gets out of there quick.
It's come out quickly.
And those calves are almost always stressed, and we need to get oxygen to them. And
Okay. All right.
And if you don't see any progression in that 30-minute period, then you need to make sure could be something going wrong. Malposition. They could be backwards. They could be breached. And that's all something. And the biggest thing is, if you start working on these calves and you're not making any progress within 15 minutes, you need to call for help, because that's that kind of time. Give yourself that 15-minute time period, and if you're not making any progress, you need some assistance.
So are you two on call 24 hours during calving season?
Yeah, one of us is.
One of you is.
Yep. So and then once you get that calf out, some things you need to help them, get the best oxygen, warm up quickly, everything like that. Do not hang the calf upside down.
Contrary to myth, yes.
You actually want to put them in what they call a dog sitting position. So keep their front feet under them and get them sitting as straight up as possible. That allows their lungs to expand the best and get them the most oxygen. If the calf isn't breathing, you want to make sure you stimulate breathing. There's a calf respirator that really helps with that. A good trick is just taking a piece of straw or anything and kind of putting that up their nose to cause them to cough, and taking a deep breath. It really helps them breathe better. Clear their mouth if they have a sac or anything, clear of any debris so they can breathe right. And then that stimulating, taking that towel or anything, just rubbing their chest vigorously to help them. Okay. Those are some of the good tips once that calf has actually arrived.
All right.
I want to hit on the don't hang the calf upside down deal again. We used to do that when I was a kid, and almost every time you hang a calf upside down, you do get fluid that comes out of their nose and their mouth. And I think the misconception is that fluid's coming out of their lungs, and it really isn't coming out of the lungs. It's coming out of the stomach. And so when we hang them upside down, we're putting all of the weight of the entire abdomen on the diaphragm, which actually makes it way more difficult to breathe and causes more problems than it does good. Once all that's done, if you have a calf that was born through a difficult birthing, I think at our altitude it makes it critical that we provide oxygen to them. And almost every rancher farmer has a cutting torch out in their shop that they can wheel out to the calving area during calving season. Take your wrench and take loose the acetylene regulator so you're not accidentally putting the wrong thing in the calf. But that torch is an excellent source of oxygen, and they need about as much as you can feel on the side of your cheek when you very, very low flow rate. You just hook up some tubing to the tip of that torch and run a real low flow rate of oxygen in their nose. Helps a lot.
Excellent information. Thank you both for coming in. We are out of time here today. I told you it went quick, didn't it? We want to thank our guests once again, Dr. Paul Shard, as well as Dr. Jolyn Sagawa, joining us today from Cattlemen's Resource Incorporated in Brush with our Veterinarian 101 segment. Up next, Dave Ramsey. Today's show brought to you by Agfinity.